everyone. Welcome back to Beyond the Feature. And I'm Dr. Patrick Jones, and joining in with you today, we're going to talk about the difference between personal AI and enterprise AI. And I'm trying something different. My director of social media, i.e., my son, told me probably let's not use the script so much. Now, the script is a double-edged sword where I go off tangent a lot. Those who know me, I talk too much. So the script keeps me grounded, but he said it also is kind of boring. So I'm going to try to go off script and use notes. So you'll see me looking away every now and then as I look at my notes. But other than that, I'm going to be conversational. All right. So I've been approached recently. That's why I wanted to do this episode by a couple different companies. And they keep asking if people use AI, is their confidential data safe? Or could it end up training that model somehow or surfacing somewhere elsewhere? And so that's a fantastic question. It's one of the smartest questions I get asked because they care. That's what it's about, right? AI company can use that. And we are going to talk about how in that personal level, right? Compared to the enterprise level and what that means and how that information is trained. So let's go ahead and get started on that. First of all, training. What is training? That's when your company takes your data and conversations and content, puts it into that tool, and uses that raw material to make the AI that it's using, that model, smarter in future versions. So why does that matter? Well, if your contract language, financial details, memos, things like that are in there, right? So those fragments shape how the model responds to a completely different person later on. So that's kind of what people are afraid of, is that mechanism. And it's not science fiction. It's true. It does that. So it's not about somebody stealing your file. In this case, it's structural, right? It's them giving that file. And that's where we need to be careful. Now, it's a contractual relationship, though, because when you're using that free product, you allow that input to become part of that future training. And that's just the personal free version, right? So for the rest of the episode, we're going to come down to talking about a lot of that legal contractual distinction between your private and your personal, right? So those are two big, like I said, legal worlds. So the free personal consumer tier AI accounts, right? The free versions of ChatGPT, Claude, Copilot, Gemini, whatever you can sign up for with just your email address. Those operate under a take it or leave it terms of service. You accept it, you're doing it. Now, when you do the paid or enterprise tiers, that's completely different legal system. That's a data processing addendum contract that designates you as the data controller and the AI as the data processor. And they can only use the data the way you've explicitly instructed it. And training on it without permission is not allowed. That's off the table. So it's two different realms of AI that you have, whether it's AI where the enterprise AI sells privacy, right? As opposed to the consumer where the data is part of the product. So that's kind of an interesting way to do it. So on the free version, you are the product. And on the paid version, you're not the product. That's what you're paying for. That's why you have that subscription. So that's really, they've all of them, the OpenAI, ChatGPT, with their business enterprise, Anthropic's team in enterprise, and Microsoft Copilot, they've all came together on that same baseline for their paid tier that they do not train on those models in your business data, period. So that's how they can keep that credibility, right? So let's go tool by tool. So ChatGPT, right? That's the free consumer version. Allows that conversation data to be used to improve the model unless you manually opt out in the settings, which nobody ever does, right? They're buried in there. business and enterprise for ChatGPT, they do not train on the customer data. And this is backed by that signed agreement, right? Not just a settings toggle. Now in Copilot, that's built specifically to inherit your organization's existing 365 security compliance and privacy settings. It does not train on your tenant's data, and it respects your existing file permissions. So you won't see something that you're not allowed to see, the same as you can't in Microsoft. If somebody has something in their OneDrive and it's not shared with you, you can't see it, period. And if you have something in your OneDrive and you haven't shared it with anybody, that's personal to you. So it maintains those rights. Claude, which is Anthropic, right? So that has the most conservative privacy stance in the market, right? No training on your data on any paid plan, not just the top enterprise tier. So now the caveat for credibility here is that paid enterprise protection covers training. It doesn't automatically mean a tool has zero risk of any kind. That admin control, quality, the content scanning capability, where somebody pastes sensitive information before they hit send, and that audit logging, those still vary between providers. And that's a factor you got to take into consideration. So there's a thing called shadow AI, and this is huge, right? It's not the enterprise contract that the companies worry about. It's what happens before that contract exists or alongside of it. So shadow AI is the industry term for employees using personal free AI accounts to work on tasks. Great intentions. They're finding positive uses for tools, trying to get something done faster without any of the leadership knowing. But it doesn't follow any of those contracts, the enterprise contracts. So if they're using those tools and putting information in them, then that then becomes a point of concern, right? So there's a research report, and I'm reading it off so I don't mess it up. 11% of inputs typed into ChatGPT contain some form of confidential information. 11%. So that means that an organization where staff are running everyday queries, sharing those queries, they might already include something sensitive without anybody realizing what they did. So, like for a law firm, we've seen it in the news a lot of time. It doesn't matter how good your enterprise contract is. If an attorney or a paralegal pastes a client's draft settlement agreement into that personal ChatGPT account on their phone to ask it to clean up the language, yeah. Now, the enterprise protection only protects what happens inside the tool. So it doesn't help when somebody's using personal in a different way. So this is why policy and training matter as much as the contract itself. There's technical controls that are allowed to block those access on the network, but staff education on why this matters it should be a rule that's handed down, to be honest with you, because we want to make sure that our people understand that difference, but also understand how to be safe and responsible with that data. So it's pretty important there. I've got a course on that with Olympus Academy, Responsible AI, because it's about how we use it, but how we're safe with it. And that's exactly why. Is just upskilling of people. They don't know they're doing wrong. They're just trying, honestly, to be better, but they just don't realize where that gap lies. All right. So here's how we can kind of take a look at that. Know which tier your organization, as a leader, your organization is in and what your staff are using right now. Not which tier you assume they're using. Ask them, right? Find out for sure. And if there isn't already a signed enterprise or business agreement with the AI tools that you are using, that's your biggest fix, because you know people are using them. So if they're using them, you may as well grab onto that enterprise agreement. It costs a little bit more money, but you make sure that it's a legally bound contract not to train on there. then you have an honest conversation with your team, not just an email or something like that, talking about the kinds of information that should never go into any AI tool, either way, without that exact confirmed enterprise agreement, right? Client names tied to sensitivity, top secret stuff, I've heard of that, financial details, anything that's privileged or regulated. And then for organizations that have that compliance exposure opportunity, like healthcare, education, finance, law, ask directly about the things that go beyond the training question. Is there a signed business associate agreement if HIPAA applies? SOC 2 certification, audit logging, data residency controls. So those are all questions to ask. And then connect this back to those sensitivity labels and data governance. We talked about that before. So if you have a clean environment with those labels and you're using Copilot, it can understand that and follow those guidelines, right? It knows where the data is, where it lives, the foundation, the policy, instead of just hoping, right? Now, there's some new companies on the horizon. Actually, they're out there right now. I've got a person I've talked to about it that have extra guardrails on AI. Huge Fortune 500 companies are using them. Reach out to me if you want information. I'm not going to throw it. It's not a commercial. But if you're interested in knowing more about it, and it's a layer between the person and the AI, any of them, that make sure that there's no, information in there. It's kind of like a purview for purview in a sense. So a lot of them are doing it just to make sure, hey, this stuff isn't getting out there. So hit me up in the comments and I can post that information of the company and give you a contact to reach out to learn more about that. But it's a fantastic tool. It's just emerging right now. It's going to be the next future of data security with AI for organizations. Anyway, so again, is our data safe with AI? It isn't really a yes/no answer. It's what tier are you on? Are you backed by that contract? And do our people actually understand the difference, right? And to do that, I'm just going to throw this out to our leaders, right? So find out whether your organization is on a paid or free tier, right? Find that out. And then maybe even reach out to your people and find out what AI tools they're using. Because we've talked about the big three, but there's a lot of other shadow IT resources out there that don't necessarily fall into this. It's what somebody found out there, and with to meet their need. And where's that data stored? If you're working for a government contract, is that data stored in the United States? Right. That's primarily where it needs to be. Right. That's part of the rules. But if somebody's using a shadow IT resource on their own, odds are it's probably not. But it's one of those things you have to investigate. Who are using what? So talk to people, not as a punishment sort of thing, but just to find out, because if everybody's using the same, let's talk about getting into a contract with them. Let's talk about what are our rights and how do we handle that. So that would be a great conversation to have for our leaders out there. And then number 2 on that for our leaders is share this discussion. I know you guys are with other people. You talk to your peers out there. Find out what your peers are doing. Share this podcast with them so that they understand what some of our distinctions are. They may have never understood it either, right? That 5-minute conversation with them can kind of close that gap between everybody. Now, we all know beyondthefeature.com, that's where all this information is. Use the chats. I'll try to respond the best I can, or reach out. I've got the DRPJJ21 website, right? My information is on there. I do a lot of trainings for this. Like I said, Olympus Academy has the training that I put out there for folks. I do personal trainings to help people understand what they have and how to use it better, whether it's responsible AI or how to use it, which is not really beyond the feature. We go beyond that, right? But I do go into the details with people on how to use things as well. So reach out to me if you need help with that or your organization does. But besides that, I will see you guys next week. And hopefully this new format of me just talking, I didn't go crazy as far as length. And hopefully it was more conversational and better.